If you win the battle, then you have either made the enemy retreat or have killed half of their troops while the majority of yours are still alive. This is pretty much the law of victory, and that's pretty much the way it has been throughout before the 18th century. So kind of before modern times. And the the pre-modern times, when they would fight battles, they're not all pitch battles, and pitch battles are kind of like the ones you see on the screen, except pitch battles are what we think of when we think of battles. We think of just two great forces colliding, two great armies colliding into each other, and just battling it out and see who wins. But this was actually kind of pretty much the least common type of battle, and the other common types of battles were just pretty much regular battles between soldiers. So think like they was just sent one army out, or even people who were like the the explorers. That's what they were called. People who always went out in front to explore and see what the army in front of them was doing, or what the army they were gonna be battling was doing, and their explorers would collide with the opposite army's explorers, and that was kind of pretty much the battles we know. And the reason that there weren't a lot of big battles is because people still didn't want to die at that time. Not everybody was just all glory. People like they still had families. They still had things that they wanted to do. They didn't, especially since all of these soldiers, at least in armies, not all of them even wanted to be soldiers. One might have wanted to be a blacksmith. One might have even been a blacksmith. That's how, if the city wasn't doing too well, they would just recruit pretty much anybody who knew how to handle a weapon, or anybody who looked strong enough. So, battle was basically entirely different from the way that we think it is, especially the way that it's depicted in some movies. Like for instance, I have watched a movie called The Great Battle, and it's about basically a huge Chinese army coming to battle a smaller Chinese army of only around or less than 5,000. So 200,000 versus 5,000. But the 5,000 people, they have a castle that they're staying in, and it's pretty much just an epic battle. That's why it's called the Great Battle. It's an epic battle. The people with 5,000 won simply because they were together. They really, that's really what I learned from War and Peace and War. And that book, I always quote back to it simply because that was a great book with all this warfare and history things. Because the side with when people have a common goal, that's usually the side that's gonna win, and when they really believe in that common goal. So, War and Peace and War. That's definitely, if you want to get into books like these, I will really recommend reading that first. And it's a good thing I did read that first. So, a lot of these wars, as I said, they weren't like how we thought they would be. And also well, and we could go back to that actually. Some people, they did want glory. There was I don't remember the troop's name, but they were fighting the Mongols, and they seen the Mongol or the Genghis Khan. Well, it wasn't Genghis Khan, but they seen the Khan at the time, whoever the Khan was in that battle, and they all went crazy because they wanted to kill him. They wanted the glory of being known as killing the Khan. So that's pretty much a a bad thing. Everybody wanted glory, and of course they all got wiped out. The Mongols were pretty were very strong during their reign. And we could talk about, next we can go into kind of some of the questions. And is this book true? So do I think that this book is true, with the law of victory? That retreat entails victory. I would say so. Because if you retreat, it's kind of like surrendering, except you're not surrendering. Like you're just saying, okay, I don't want to be killed. It's the same thing, except you're just not giving yourself in completely. Because I feel like turning your backs to your opponents. That's pretty much giving yourself in. So that part is true about that law of victory. And if half of your men dies, so think about with this one. Think about if a huge army was fighting a huge army, and one of the huge armies, half of their men died, and the other huge army, all of their men are alive. I would say that portrays the victory for the people with the majority of people who lived. Everyone else is dead, like half people versus full people, and this is like on even grounds. Like this isn't like someone has an advantage or anything. Well, I'm talking about with castles and things like that, because we know people with castles can win, or so. So that entails victory too. So I will say that that this is pretty true. There might be some other laws of victory. For instance, he talked about the a lot of other laws and talked about the aristocrats, what they thought, what the commoners thought, and a lot of other things. So what's the meaning of this book? Well, I read this book. I didn't even know it was gonna be kind of a semi-syntopical read, but right now I'm reading. Or right now I don't want to say I'm into it, but I'm learning about battle and just the rules of it, and basically what causes battle, what happens in the battle, and what are the effects of battle. So I've read some more books on the topic. So that's kind of the meaning of it for me, is just to know battle, and not like I'm not gonna become like, well, the only person I can think of is Sun Tzu. Like I'm not gonna become a general, especially in the 21st century. I'm just a reader, but but this is really cool. I really enjoy this. So that's another meaning. This reading books like these are fun for me. Just learning things are is extremely fun for me. But this was the verdict of battle.